Hello everyone. This is not a story for the faint of heart. Today, we will be stepping into the darkness of the most gruesome cases, where evil not only exists, but also leaves bloody and haunting traces. This is Real Gruesome Murder Cases, a series of true stories about murders that made the whole world shudder. If you are ready to face the cold truth and the gruesome corners of humanity, come with me to delve deeper into each case. Suicide Pact. Every Friday, my parents cook the most delicious turkey that has ever existed on Earth. They use natural ingredients that I have never heard of before. Every time they make it, I ask them for the recipe. They just never tell me. Instead, they looks at me with a smile mixed with sadness and joy, and tell me that one day, when their time has come to pass, they will tell me. Tell me the secret ingredient. This is the routine that happens every week, every Friday. Little do they know that their time will be my time too. Although I know that my parents won't tell me the recipe, I give it another shot. Walk up to them, give them my best smile, take their hands, and ask. But they already know what I am going to say. They grin and shakes their heads, nodding towards my room, sending me the message to get ready for bed. I sigh and slump towards my room. I stop in front of my door. The door is decorated with pictures from my favorite band. The picture on the very left makes me smile. It's the picture of my favorite band member making a silly face. I laugh dreamily and stare into his brown eyes. But I'm not the only one laughing. Soon enough, my older brother Luke is pounding me on the back and laughing. Not really a nice laugh either. "Lola, you've got to stop this," he chokes out. "Stop what?" I demand, my brows furrowed. "Stop joking around with your pictures. It's too funny to handle." I raise my eyebrows high and stare at him, long and hard. Finally, I shoot him a glare and step into my room. I don't forget to slam the door right into his laughing face. See, this is the reason I need to get away from my family. My brother. He is so annoying. You wish that you weren't born. And I don't. Yes, I am killing myself because of my brother. It was either this or run away. But if you run away, you just get kidnapped and killed anyway. So what's the difference? Once safely in my room, and my brother gone, I sneak into my closet and pull out the small but strong bulletin board that I got from my grandmother on my birthday. I forgot to check yesterday's square on the calendar, so I will do it with today's. I take the white chalk I have been using the past month out of the box that it was in and slash 2 white lines next to the others. When done, I carefully put everything back in my closet and lie on my bed. Breathing slowly, I run down the suicide plan in my mind. When I come back to my room from brushing my teeth, something in the room is different. The lights are off. Did Mom come in here? Dad couldn't, because he's in Miami for work. Oh no. What if my brother came in here? I try to shrug it off and crawl under my covers. The whooshing of the wind outside quickly drowns me in my sleep, and all my thoughts are lost. The next morning, I get up late. I quickly eat breakfast and get ready for school. I arrive at school on time, but I'm still worried about the lights turned off yesterday. Someone must have went into my room, did something, and forgotten that the lights had already been on when they went in. My worried look must be severe because Angie, my best friend, asks me if I am all right at lunch. "Oh, I'm fine, I reply. Her head is cocked to the side, and she studies me closely. I try to give her a brief smile and shrug it off. This is a good idea, because Angie knows that my shrugs are all truthful and intentional. I feel so bad, though, for betraying and lying to my friend, even though she can help me get out of this mess. I remind myself that some things are meant to be dealt with alone and individually, but I still feel bad. So before the lunch bell rings, I ask her if she wants to come over, and her face lightens. She tells me, of course. When school ends, we meet up at our usual spot near the gate and start to walk towards my house. We talk about the usual things: hallway gossip, grades, and boys. When we get to my house, we watch a movie and make slime, which fortunately takes my mind off things. Before Angie leaves, she hugs me tight and whispers into my ear that she knows something is wrong and that she can help me anytime with it. She tells me that I am never alone. If only that were true. Even after our time together, Angie and I only used up 3 hours of our time. I still have 1 hour left to chill. I get bored, so I decide to slash today's mark earlier than usual and head into my closet. When I pull out the bulletin board, though, all the tally marks are gone. I'm so shocked that I gasp out loud. What? What? I stutter. I was not going to let this go. If someone had done this, only my brother could. My mother wouldn't do such an evil thing. But if my brother had read the notebook, then he would know that he was being such a pain. I wait until he comes home from work and confront him. It did not work as well as I thought, though. He convinces me that I can't kill myself because of one person, that I need more bad things in my life to hate myself enough and kill myself. We sort it out, and he swears to not be much of a pain anymore. I guess some things are meant to be dealt with by talking and not action. I have learned my lesson. Muddled murder. The first thing I saw when I woke up was the blood. My mind went into a full panic mode, and I flipped out. I started checking all over myself to see where I had been injured, my bloody hands smearing the blood all over my clothes. Then I realized I wasn't injured, which could only mean one thing. It was someone else's blood, but whose? I had no idea. In fact, I had no idea where I was. All I could see around me was a dark, narrow street. I was standing on the sidewalk, quite far away from the nearest streetlight. Above me was the clear night sky. A handful of stars shone down upon me, and I felt that they were supposed to give me some comfort, but my heart rate refused to slow down. And then I saw it. There was a body on the curb, barely 10 meters away from me. My natural instinct was to go and check on the person, but something stopped me. I wondered what, but my memory refused to provide me with anything in my past. I tiptoed closer. Not another soul in the alley as I went and checked. I was still a couple of meters away from the man when I realized he wasn't breathing. There was a pool of blood spreading from his torso and onto the sidewalk. The man was dead, and I had blood on my hands. I didn't need any memory to add up the two. A car's headlights suddenly flashed to life in front of me, and the engine revved on. It reversed a bit, and then sped past me, barely giving me enough time to register the man sitting inside. From the small pharmacy in front of me, a short, bearded man came out and started pulling down the shutter. I did the first thing that came to my mind. I ran. I had no idea how long I had run for, but I am sure it was a pretty long time because my t-shirt was completely soaked in sweat by the time I stopped. And it was an early winter evening. I realized I was on a bridge, a few cars going by, couples walking, holding hands, families with little children. I wondered who my parents were, if I was married or had a romantic lover. If I only had my memories back, my life. But the sight of my hand snapped me right out of those thoughts. It didn't matter, because nobody would want to be related to a murderer. I didn't know if someone else had killed him, or if it had been me. But suddenly, it occurred to me that it would be better if I didn't know. If I did remember my past, what if I realized that I had murdered him? Not only him, but maybe others too. Just that thought made me doubt myself, and wanting my memories back seemed like a dangerous option. I descended the bridge to reach the turbid river flowing past me, and thankfully washed up my bright red hands in the water. My hands were numb by the time I stood up to return to the upper roads. That was when I heard something. "Oh, it was easy as cake," a man said. "Are you sure no one was there?" asked a woman. "I think I saw a girl, and she saw me." I panicked and drove forward, but the car hit her head, and she collapsed to the ground. I didn't know what to do, and I stopped to check, but she was stirring up, so I raced away, the man replied. It was coming from the other side of the bridge, beyond the wall separating the riverbank for the construction of the bridge. I tiptoed over to it and peeked out to see who was talking. Smoke blew out from a man's dark lips as he put a cigarette into his mouth again, leaning on the wall. The woman was standing across from him, arms crossed, in oversized, baggy clothes. She had a beanie on her head and wore huge, funky glasses. She was facing me, but I was well hidden in the dark. They continued talking, not caring to keep their voices down. "You dolt? The body is still there?" the woman asked. "Abandoned on the sidewalk. Shouldn't be noticed by anyone till tomorrow morning. By then, we'll be long gone." The man was nonchalant. The woman nodded, a bit anxious, while he smoked for a minute more. Then they both started climbing up the riverbank. I followed them after some time, composing my thoughts and struggling to remember something. I thought I must have waited for a minute or two, but I somehow still saw the car leaving with the two people in it, and the slate of my memory, which had been wiped clean, managed to store the number in it. Police sirens made their way to my ears, and I was a bit surprised. My blank mind recognized it. Had I heard them many times before? Was I actually a criminal? What was my past? I somehow didn't want to find out. I just stood frozen there, above the riverbank, in the headlights of the police cars, as they advanced towards me. I was literally unable to move, dead tired and fatigued. "Hands up in the air," came a voice over the loudspeaker. My addled mind did as I was told. The next few minutes were a blur as the cops came out, handcuffed me, charged me for the murder of a famous entrepreneur, and took me to the police station for questioning. Somewhere along the way, I fell unconscious. "Did you kill Mr. Pop?" I knew that was the name the entrepreneur was known by, but it sounded funny. I bit back a chuckle. "I don't know," I answered, just like I had the 3 last times. "I have all night," the officer told me. "Keep sitting then. I hope your butt doesn't hurt." I almost smirked. He glared daggers at me, and then stood up and left the room. A few minutes later, another officer entered, a plump, middle-aged woman. "Answer honestly. Did you kill Mr. Pop?" "I have been telling you honestly. I have no idea whether I did or I didn't. I just woke up with no memory of where I was or who I was," I yelled at her. Yelled. She nodded in sympathy. Quite common in criminals. I was too tired to correct her, but I was exasperated. Why couldn't they just understand I was telling the truth? Nothing in my head tells me that I killed that man, so I don't know, I declared. "There is quite some evidence, you know. The blood on your clothes matches with his." I looked down at the red spots and smears on my clothes and winced. And a shop owner in the alley says that he saw a girl with a description like yours run away from the dead body. Same orange t-shirt, same long braid, and same camo pants. Now tell me, what am I supposed to believe? She raised an eyebrow. "I really don't know," I said. The description was me all right, and I had run away. But had I killed the man? Unsure guilt surged through my veins, and the officer noticed the beads of sweat on my forehead. If I was the murderer, I was just making their jobs harder. But then, I didn't want to find out. Unsure guilt was stressful enough, and I didn't know how I could live with the knowledge that I had killed a human being in cold blood. "Are you sure you don't want to confess anything?" she asked with a tone of finality in her sweet voice. "I would confess if I remembered anything," I replied. Then I suddenly remembered something. "Wait, what's wrong?" The lady officer leaned forward, eyebrows knitted together. "I saw that car leave the bridge tonight. The two people in it, they were talking about something suspicious," I said, racking my brain for the words. The man raised an eyebrow. "What? I'm not sure." "They were saying that they left a body on the sidewalk. A girl had seen it. They hit her head and run away. They were planning to escape tonight." I narrated the incident. "How does that make a difference?" "It does," I said, as I saw my spark of hope being snatched away with it. "You should check. I remember the car number. You know the number plate, huh?" The two police officers had tracked the number plate to a road by the river, where a car had been abandoned. "Go home," the woman told me. "I don't know where I live." "Then wait here. We're going alone." I scowled as I followed them out of the police station, and their car revved away. Then I saw a cab passing me and jumped in. "Follow that car!" We followed the car for 25 minutes until we reached a road running parallel to the river. The police car had stopped behind the car I had seen before, and I told the cab driver to park behind it and jumped off. I rushed to the shore, where I could see the river and a small boathouse in the distance. The river was wide at that point, the current slow. To my left were the mountains into which the river bent, and my right were the police officers near the boathouse about half a kilometer away. I saw the man and woman I had seen earlier, along with a dark guy in shoes, pull out a rusty old motorboat and push it into the water and jump on. "Put your hands in the air. You cannot escape tonight." The officers pointed their gun at them. In their surprise, someone suddenly activated the turbines, and they sped ahead into the river, moving towards my side. The motorboat was slow. The turbines were sputtering and malfunctioning as the boat raced away, forearm the routing and chasing officers. I don't know what I was thinking, but I barely hesitated a second before jumping into the river to my left. They were speeding towards my side, cutting through the middle of the river. I was perpendicularly closer, and I knew I could reach the center before they did. I swam in smooth, rapid strokes, cutting through the water like a literal fish as I aimed towards the center where they would reach in about 10 seconds. I think they were too preoccupied keeping their eyes on the officers, because they certainly didn't see me coming. The cold water didn't faze me. It was like it was part of my blood. Of course, the adrenaline counteracted it, and I had no trouble speeding through the limpid surface. As expected, I reached 1 second before their boat. As it zoomed past me, I somehow managed to grab hold of the end. I clambered on, somehow still unnoticed by the 3 people, while the officers stared at me, flabbergasted. They were too scared to shoot, let it hurt me, so it all depended on me. I crept forward and elbowed the cigarette man in the neck sharply, that he fell to the ground immediately, somehow unconscious. The woman turned to me, ready to battle in her large hanging clothes. I ducked to avoid her punch, grabbed her arm, and twisted it behind her back. Then I kicked her off the boat as it continued speeding away. The last man was the one with the shades, driving the boat. He stepped out of the seat while the boat continued towards the hills and turned to face me. Even though I couldn't see his eyes, a chill ran down my spine, and he attacked. I think my brain was a little slow to process, as his kick swept me off my feet and knocked the air out of my lungs. Panting, I pushed at the floor to get up, while he grabbed my hair and pushed my head towards the whirring motors of the boat. He pressurized me into the blades, while I used all my physical strength to hold my head up. He pushed once, twice, and the 3rd time, I finally got a grip with one hand to ram the other into his sternum. As he doubled back, I realized that the boat was heading straight for a wall of soil and bushes. A hill was straight ahead. I rushed towards the wheel, but before I could rush it, the man got up and tugged me back. I wrestled with him, watching the imminent crash drifting closer. He kicked my thigh, and I launched a punch at his shoulder, ran again for the wheel. Grabbing the cool metal, I yanked it to the right, just as the boat curved around the edge of the hill, and barely avoided the collision. The man with shades had managed to stand up at the end of the boat, but my sudden turn threw him off balance, and he splashed into the water. I steered the boat towards the shore as I saw the other 2 criminals climbing out and being ambushed by the police officers. I finally parked along the bank and stepped out, my mind in a whirl, even more muddled than before. The 2 officers emerged, dragging along the 2 criminals. The woman went on to the boat and brought the 3rd guy, then came back, and both of them patted my back. But I wasn't paying attention. My mind was elsewhere. How did I know how to do all that? How did I swim so well, or fight so brutally? The worst thought crept into my head. I could be a trained assassin or mercenary. I was too much of an expert, and I had been pretty close to the dead man. I was scared that I had led the police on a wild goose chase. I must be the real criminal. I must have killed Mr. Pop. I didn't want to find out When I voiced my concerns, the police officers waved them away, too busy congratulating me. But my head refused to believe them, fearful of what my past could hold. Hey, do you remember me? A man rushed into the hospital ward, worry lines creasing over his forehead. Two people who claimed to be my parents were standing on one side of my bed, explaining to me that he was my brother. I'm sorry, but no, I said, and he looked like he was about to burst into tears. My parents leaned over and hugged him, as they also squeezed my hands. I saw the two police officers appear from the door. They had huge grins on their faces. All three of them confessed to the murder, and we also found them guilty of a couple more. They have been duly imprisoned. Great work, kid, the man said. And on top of that, it was announced a couple of hours ago that you are going to be awarded a bravery medal for your courage. The woman was about to jump up and down. I found it difficult to smile. But how was I able to defeat them so easily? How could I fight so well, swim so smoothly? Are you sure I'm not a danger to society? My brow was furrowed. No, not at all. The man who was supposed to be my father guffawed and slapped my thigh. Don't worry. I'll tell you a bit about yourself. You are 26, won 7 medals for swimming in high school, and now teach martial arts at a renowned academy. Murder at Ex-Ircon. The extreme ironing convention was infamous in Preston. For the last 8 years, extreme ironers from around the world fell upon the city. Their antics in the streets caused emergency calls for days. Ironing on top of city buses. Ironing while hang gliding over downtown. Ironing while belaying down the cupola of City Hall. Every year, there was one incident that truly left its mark on Preston. This year, the incident would be the death of Sean Morrison. I looked down at Sean's body, his face brutalized by a blunt object. In any other situation, identifying the murder weapon might have been tricky. But not here. Not at Ex-Ircon. There was no mistaking the iron-shaped dent in the dead man's head. I had seen it before. I clenched my fists, remembering the day that my wife had been murdered 8 years ago. The image of her face haunted my nightmares. Beautiful until it had been ruined by a Bosch TDA 2650 G-Bide quick fill, the highest rated iron of 2012. Preston's coroner had estimated the time of death at about 2:15 a.m. The murder weapon had not been found yet, and the trail of blood leading out of Sean's hotel suite had run cold quickly. No witnesses had come forward. The extreme ironing community was notoriously tight-knit and likely to protect their own. They had done so in the past. Detective Clay, they're ready. A police officer on scene had separated the suspects, and she handed me a list of names. I squared my shoulders and got started with the interview process. Anna Kruger, the hotel manager, was already in Sean's suite, pacing around and surveying the extensive damage. Pieces of drywall and broken glass littered the carpet, and the telltale burn marks of overly hot irons defaced the furniture and carpet. I watched her until she stopped mid-pace near the end table next to the couch and knelt down. Anna stuck her arm in a hole in the wall and pulled out a Panasonic A66K automatic iron. I never would have allowed these extreme ironing United States assholes to have XIRCon here again if I weren't so hard up for money. At least they rented out the entire place. Anna glared at the iron-shaped hole in the drywall. They always ruin something. They leave burns and run up the electric bills, plugging in all their stupid irons. She raised her eyes to meet mine and brandished the iron. But this time, Sean went too far. When was the last time you saw him, Ms. Kruger? He came down last night, around 11, asking for more towels. She pointed at a pile of charred towels near the couch. I can see why he asked. Anna held out the Panasonic iron, her hand shaking. The temperature gauge is on the highest setting. He was burning things on purpose. If he were still alive, I'd sue him into oblivion. Miss Kruger, do check with that ironing board vendor detective. I had to chase him out of the storage room around 2:30 this morning. Mighty suspicious, if you ask me. Errol Fleming, the owner of the Cleveland Ironing Board Company, leaned against the wall in his room. That damned Sean, he growled, German accent thick on his tongue. He ruined me. He posted negative reviews of my new ironing board design and used his extreme ironing championship fame and influence to boost them. Go on, the Cleveland steamer. It was a board made specifically for steam irons. Sean was a proponent of steam irons, but he said my board had a shitty design. His was the #1 review on Amazon. Everyone saw it. My profits tanked. No one bought. I am glad he is gone. I'm sure his negative reviews were the only reason no one bought the board. Errol's eyes widened, and he straightened his back. I am not happy he is dead. That is a terrible thing to say. I am innocent, of course. Mr. Fleming, can you tell me what you were doing in the storage closet last night? Color rose to his cheeks. I cannot say. It would ruin me. I thought your business was already ruined by Mr. Morrison. Yes, my beautiful Cleveland steamer. But I had other boards in development. What does this have to do with your excursion? Errol sucked in a breath and held it until I thought he might faint. Finally, he breathed out and answered. I was looking at the hotel's ironing boards. I frowned. I couldn't come up with any good ideas, he wailed. I was looking for inspiration. You can't tell anyone that I'm an ironing board design fraud. Errol slumped back against the wall. "Gottverdammt," he whispered. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Fleming. Please, wait. You should talk to the tall man with curly hair. I saw him sneaking out of Sean's room last night, after 2. Thomas Prince. The tall man with curly hair was Thomas Prince, a longtime advocate for the use of steam irons over dry irons in the extreme ironing competition world. Thomas was a prolific donor to Kickstarter campaigns for new steam iron technology, and he wielded a Rowenta DW52701 Focus Excel steam iron during competitions. He looked up from the hotel bed when I walked in, eyes red and puffy. "Detective, I hear you were out late." "Yeah, I went to see Sean." "Any particular reason?" "We're friends." Thomas frowned and corrected himself. "Were friends, Mr. Prince. Your visit makes you the last person to see Sean alive. That doesn't mean anything. Have you talked to Noah yet? He was going to drop some major news on us tonight, and Sean got wind of it yesterday. He was so upset." "What news?" "Sean wanted to take over Eos. He thought Noah was doing a shit job, and he's never been shy about voicing his opinion. Noah threatened him, so Sean took a swing, caught him right in the jaw. Good thing he has a weak punch. Go on." Thomas leaned back. "Not much else to say. I went to Sean's room to talk him down after that. He was pretty shaken up and talking about leaving EUs completely. Noah had really gotten him riled up. I appreciate the information. In the meantime, I would like you to stay right here." Thomas shot me an annoyed look. "Am I still a suspect? You were seen leaving Sean's room last night, and his body was found this morning. I'd say you're the primary suspect. I called for additional officers to watch Thomas's room, while one officer remained inside. Noah Bowers. I approached the sullen president of Extreme Ironing United States, Noah Bowers, in the hotel's business center. He looked up from his seat at a small conference table. Before I could say anything, Noah spoke. "You think I did it, don't you?" "I didn't say that, but you know I threatened him, right?" "Well, he threatened me first. I didn't want him to, think I was intimidated." Noah stood up and spun one of the chairs. "Look, bro, Sean was a dick, okay? That's no secret. So he wanted to oust me and, take over as president of the EIUS. That doesn't mean I killed him." I said nothing. Noah grunted and crossed his arms. "If you really want to know who did it, you should talk to his fiancée, Maren, bro. She was gonna, poison him or something." Maren knocked. I visited Maren in her hotel room. She was sitting calmly on the hotel bed, watching a reality show, and she didn't bother to look up as I entered the room. "I understand you found Sean this morning, Ms. Knox." "Sure did. I went in to make sure he was up in time for the convention. He liked to sleep in." "You had access to his room?" She stared at me. "Duh. We were engaged. You don't seem upset that your fiancé was murdered." Maren shrugged. "I'm not. He was an abusive, cheating piece of shit. and I was going to end things tonight. But now I have to thank someone for saving me the trouble. I understand you were planning to poison Sean. Marin cocked a thin brow. Why would I poison him when I could leave him? That's why I got my own room in the first place. I was thinking of putting eye drops in his food so he'd shit his guts out. So yeah, maybe that's technically poisoning him, but he wouldn't have died or anything. It's still an actionable offense, Ms. Knox, whatever. Like I said, I didn't do it. She paused in thought. You should talk to Eddie. I saw him arguing with Sean yesterday. It looked pretty heated, but I didn't stick around to listen. Probably something to do with steam versus dry irons again. Eddie's crazy for dry irons. Eddie Wu was doodling on hotel stationery, but he put the pen down as I walked into his room. I understand you and Mr. Morrison exchanged words yesterday. We have the same argument every time we see each other, Eddie said, sitting up a little straighter. He's always going on about steam iron superiority, but he fails to see the beauty and simplicity of a classic dry iron. When did you last see Mr. Morrison? Eddie continued, as though I hadn't spoken. Using a dry iron is an art form. He walked across the room towards an ornate case. Let me show you. That's okay, my iron, he cried out in panic. Eddie showed me the empty case. Where is it? How? Eddie sank to his knees, tears spilling from his eyes. My glorious iron. I can't believe it's gone. Mr. Wu, I don't care about your needs, detective. What about mine? My iron is missing. The perfect sole plate, unblemished by steam holes, polished to a high shine. Did you know I had a custom handle built to fit my hand perfectly? My heart skipped a beat, and an image of my wife thrust itself into my head. The iron mark on her face wasn't perfectly smooth. There were spots, steam holes, but Sean's mark had no holes. He was killed with a dry iron. Mr. Wu? I said, struggling to keep my voice even. Who else here is a dry iron aficionado? You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me. Eddie grinned like the Cheshire Cat. Sean Morrison. Did anyone else know? Eddie shrugged. This is a small world, detective. It's hard to hide something so scandalous. His grin faded. You should talk to Thomas. Thomas Prince. Thomas jerked up in surprise as I walked in the door. He set aside the iron he was cradling and wiped a tear from his eye. Mr. Prince, how well do you know the others at this convention? Well, me and Sean go way back, of course. Eddie's been around for a while. We don't agree on irons, but he's a nice guy. Marin came into the mix a couple years ago. Noah's been the president of EIUS for a long time, but he mostly keeps to himself. I don't know him that well. Do you know if anyone might have a motive to harm Mr. Morrison? Marin and Sean have been together for a long time, but that's been falling apart. Thomas made a face. She's a real piece of work. I wouldn't trust her with my iron under any circumstances, but I don't really know the others well enough to say. I took a deep breath. Did you know that Sean was secretly into dry irons? Thomas winced. I went to visit him after he argued with Noah. He was really stressed out. I don't think he meant to tell me, but he slipped up. He told me about his preference for dry irons. Go on. I was shocked, you know. We had spent years talking about the merits of steam irons over dry. Thomas threw his hands in the air. I mean, you can use a steam iron as a dry iron. But he just kept talking about how cool Eddie's iron was. Thomas stood and walked to the window. I asked him if I could have his championship-winning steam iron. And I know it was kind of selfish to even ask, but it's a steam iron. He faced me, his mouth hard. If he was so into dry irons, there's no reason he needed to keep that one. I knew the answer already. He said no. Thomas hung his head. Yeah, that's when I noticed it. A plug barely poked out from under the hotel's dresser. Thomas noted my pause and followed my gaze. We lunged at the same time, but I reached the dresser first, knelt, and yanked the cord, and there it was. The Oster Heavyweight GCSTG 1109 Classic, stained with what was surely the victim's blood. Eddie Wu's missing iron. I expected to fight my way out of the situation, but Thomas sat down heavily and exhaled. I didn't mean to kill him. I backed away from Thomas to the room door. Sean had Eddie's iron in his room. He was messing with it. I think he was trying to break it so Eddie wouldn't win in today's competition. Thomas groaned. And that was bad enough. If the sponsors found out, we'd lose all those investments. But when he refused to give me his steam iron, I just snapped. I stuck my head out the door and motioned for the nearest officer to assist me. Before I could even think about what I was doing, Sean was on the floor, and I was holding Eddie's iron. I brought it back here to hide it, but you see how much good that did me. Thomas looked down at his hands. I'll never iron again. The officer casually entered the room. I won't resist, he said, looking straight at me. I messed up. Mr. Prince, please remain still, the officer said gently as she bent down and handcuffed Thomas's hands behind his back. The officer led Thomas away, but the satisfaction of solving the case rang hollow in my heart. I returned to other suspects to tell them they were free to go. When I got to Marin's room, she simply nodded and started packing her things. But there was something I had to know. Did you know your boyfriend was a dry iron promoter? Marin's eyes widened. Sean's been advocating the benefits of steam irons, both in competition and in the home, for years. The slight tremble in her voice gave her away. She was hiding something. What aren't you telling me, Ms. Knox? She stared at the floor and bit her lip. Look, he'd always use a steam iron for shows and competitions, because that's what people expected. He had a sponsor to please, a wealthy one, but behind closed doors, Marin took a deep, shuddering breath. Behind closed doors, we used a dry iron. She buried her face in her hands. Oh God, you can't tell anyone. His reputation would be destroyed. The sponsor would pull all their funding out of the projects he and Thomas were working on. Like what? They had an idea to improve this older model steam iron, right? To make it more efficient and easier to clean. The steam holes on that model were tough to clean, but it was otherwise a great iron. I would even use it sometimes when he wasn't at home. I liked it better than his dry iron. She laughed sadly. He would have been so mad. Marin stood up and started to pace. Anyway, he never got a new steam iron, so he always used the same one. His championship iron. It was iconic, blue and white. Have you ever seen it? Something in her voice made me uneasy. Let me show you, Marin continued. It's beautiful, Xavier. How do you know my name? She opened a decorative case near the foot of the hotel bed and pulled out an iron. My blood ran cold. It was a Bosch TDA 2650 G quick fill. Marin smirked at my expression. You recognize it, don't you? Or rather, you recognize the shape of the sole plate. It was the same one that killed your wife 8 years ago. She stepped closer, her grin widening. He did it, you know? Sean killed her. She found out his secret obsession with dry irons, and he couldn't allow her to talk. I inched my hand towards my concealed pistol. Put the Bosch down, Marin. You don't have to do this. Marin raised the iron. Her pupils dilated with madness. But I've always wanted to know what it felt like, what it could feel like to kill someone. She swung the iron towards my head, barely missing. I called for backup and pulled out my pistol to defend myself. I don't want to shoot you. 2 police officers swept into the room before I had to take any further actions. Marin was quickly disarmed and handcuffed. She glared at me as the officers pulled her from the room, but she said nothing further. My heart ached with memories of my wife. Whether he knew it or not, Thomas had given her a little bit of justice, but that didn't excuse his actions. He would be behind bars for a long time. Marin would serve time for being an accessory to murder, for covering up Sean's crimes. I would have preferred to see Sean stand trial, to look into his face with satisfaction as the bailiffs hauled him away. I would have to content myself knowing the truth of my wife's murder had finally been ironed out. A fatal prank check. The day started off like any other April Fool's Day. Minor pranks, like taping the bottom of the faucet and letting all the water squirt up at the person's face and clothes. Unplugging the copy machine so others can think it doesn't work, and they have to handwrite it sticky, noting a random person's cubicle, and placing an upside-down cup that says, "Don't move this cup unless you're going to kill it," on someone's desk who's scared of insects. But come to find out, there isn't anything under it. There are much more pranks that happen at our company's office. It was just a matter of time until someone took it overboard. That someone wasn't just a someone. We were all included. Tommy Miller was just the poor guy who had it done to him. We all swore that day. We swore that we wouldn't tell, that no one will find out what happened. I knew all things. Or did I get it all wrong? After all the pranks were over, everyone was at the edge of their feet, hoping that all the pranks were completed. Little by little, an untouched prank would make its way through. But it was fading, and everyone could work at peace. Our boss, David Klon, never liked attending work on April Fools. He stopped coming after one of his employees, Saran, wrapped his whole office. When I mean the whole office, by the time he cut through the layers of Saran on his door, which took hours, he walked into a room and office equipment covered in layers of fine plastic. It was honestly the cherry on top to past pranks, stealing his coffee machine and his backup, removing his fridge away from his room, and potentially removing all his furniture. These were great boss pranks, and I'm surprised no one got caught or fired. The day was almost ending, and daytime shifters were exiting the building. It didn't matter, because the daytime shifters consisted of 4 to 5 workers. The main workers of 6 to 10 workers were us, the all-time shifters. It consisted of Matt Donovan, Sophie Mari, Carson T., Maddie Marone, Evan Tyson, Mickey L., Victoria Stallion, Tommy Miller, and I, Francis D'Angelo. We were all somewhat close, definitely in age, but somewhat in communication. The only person who stayed to themselves was Tommy. He was the quiet businessman type, focused on his own work and prioritizes. He thought the office pranks were stupid, although he didn't directly say that. He had a short comb-over cut, his brown hair nicely gelled off to the right of his head. He wore suits, the nice kind. He arrived early to work, never arrived late in his life, I suppose. Matt Donovan stood up from his cubicle and gathered everyone who was left in the office. Except for Tommy. We all gathered up in my cubicle because I was the last one to be gathered up. "What's going on?" I questioned, knowing something was up. Matt replied quickly, "We're going out. Having fun tonight. We all know we're the brilliant masterminds that are behind all the crazy pranks." He was wrong, at least this time. I had nothing to do with any pranks this year. I ran out of things to do, and although that seems awful, me, Francis D'Angelo, pranking innocent co-workers of mine. I know, but it's fun and a one-time, each year type of thing. So, that's all? You want us to all go out? Like to the bar? Victoria asked. What I think Matt is trying to say is that he wants us to go out so we can turn up and congratulate ourselves for being awesome pranksters, Carson said. He was always the goofy one. That's not what I meant. I do think we should celebrate another year of great pranks, but not yet. I think we should all do one final prank, Matt said suspiciously. He made my spine tremble when he talked like that. Okay, Matt. April Fool's is practically over. What is the big prank about, anyway? I wanted to know, too, just as much as Evan did. Well, my dear Evan, we're going to prank Tommy Miller. What? I couldn't believe it. Why Tommy? He was, I don't know. He was just different. Pranking him tonight was stupid. Matt, that's stupid. Keep your voice down, Francis. You don't have to be a part of it. We won't exactly need you anyways. And what is that supposed to mean, Matt? I'm totally in. My blood was boiling. How can Matt say that after that fact, I helped him last year prank his mom? Okay, good. Mickey, Maddie, and Sophie, you guys in? Sure, whatever. Yeah, fine. Okay, here's the plan. We all huddled into each other, listening to Matt's prank. Even though this prank was a little too serious, we all thought it was a nutty idea. It was interesting, and it seemed funny. I also couldn't back down from it. I just couldn't. Hey, Tommy, we're all going out for some pizza and beer. Want to join us? Tommy rotated his chair, facing up. Why? I mean, thanks for the offer, but I think I'll have to pass. He turned back around. We knew this was gonna happen. Victoria makes her way to Tommy. She places her soft hands on his shoulders. Oh, please, Tommy. She massages his shoulders. I think you should hang with us. You're always so. She stoops down to his ear. Tense. She removes her touch from him and walks toward us. She is absolutely astonishing. Tommy spins back again to face us. We wait a little while for the answer that we've been waiting for. Okay, I suppose one night of hanging out won't hurt. Plan A. Flirtatious. Victoria. Check. Plan B. Complimenting. Matt in progress. That's a sport, Tommy. I always knew you had in ya. You got the looks, dude. All you need is the bad attitude, and you're all set, my guy. We could all tell Tommy was flattered. Plan B was another check, getting Tommy to like us. Let's take some shots before we hit the road, Ivan yelled. We all walked to the office's lounge. As soon as we walked in, Ivan and Matt hunched over a barrel-looking thing. They pulled out 2 bottles of vodka. I could tell Victoria was excited, but the rest looked somewhat confused on how they even snuck that in here. Of course, we aren't going to drink all of it, but a shot or 2 will do. I'll get the solo cups, Tommy hesitates to walk into the lounge, but Sophie walks to him and grabs his arm. Your first, hot stuff. No. I think I'm good. I don't think you guys should even have those in this building, due to how unprofessional that is, and also because we're going to be driving in cars. Last time I checked, drunk driving is illegal. Oh, please, Tommy, don't ruin this for us, dude. Evan poured some vodka into each of the 9 cups. We all took one, even Tommy. We all pushed him into doing so. He had to, so he could overcome what was going to happen next. Afterward, we walked to the coat rack and grabbed our stuff. We all walked out together, without Tommy. We let him catch up with us at the parking lot for future purposes. We all gathered around our cars. Luckily, Sophie and Even caught a ride with Matt today. Less cars to ride in equals less suspicion. Ugh, there you guys are. You guys walk mighty fast. I'm guessing you can't wait to party. Tommy laughs with a tone that sounds humorless. We went along with it, so we can spark up the mood. Ha ha ha. You're so funny, Tommy. We all cried in unison. So, Tommy, I don't see your car anywhere. Did you catch a ride with someone today? I just realized that Tommy's station wagon wasn't parked anywhere around. That was weird. Oh yeah, I took the bus. My old thing is in mechanics. She's beautiful, but losing her touch, I suppose. Mind if I catch a ride with one of you guys? Not at all, Tommy. Not at all. Matt's voice sounded too enthusiastic. He nodded to Ivan. Come on, Tommy. You're riding with me. Evan had a nice, wide smile across his face. Plan C. Dump him in progress. It was go time. Sophie and Victoria walked to Tommy's side. We're riding with you and Ivan. This is gonna be a fun ride. Even in the shallow night, I can tell. Tommy's face got a little red. Ivan popped the trunk of his Audi open. Carson walked to Ivan's car and held the trunk open for him. Thanks, dude. This car is a piece of crap. The stupid trunk door can't even stay open by itself. Hey, Tommy, you can place your stuff in the trunk. It won't fit in the back seat. Sorry. Tommy walks to the trunk and starts placing his stuff in the trunk. Before you do that, Tommy, I have to move some stuff around to make room. May I use your flashlight on your phone to see? Yeah, sure. Tommy hands Evan his phone. Evan turns the flashlight on and pretends to make space in the back of his trunk. Maddie and I go into Matt's car. We peeked out the window to see what was happening. Sophie and Victoria also go into Ivan's car. They couldn't see anything because of the trunk's door. Mickey and Matt slowly walk towards Ivan, Carson, and Tommy. Everything okay? Jeez, you guys take mighty long. What's going on? Ivan talks. Tommy, you can place your stuff in now. Tommy did as Ivan said. We're just trying go time. Mickey and Matt shove Tommy into the trunk. Mickey pins Tommy down, and Evan removes a roll of duct tape from his pocket. Ivan tucks Tommy's phone into Matt's pocket, rips a chunk of tape with his teeth and smacks it onto Tommy's mouth. "Happy April Fool's Day, Tommy. You gotta live a little." Matt waves to Tommy. Carson slams the trunk door shut and enters into a separate car with Mickey. Plan C. Dump him. Check. On to Plan D. Plan D. Car ride around town in progress. We all drove in separate cars. We drove in random directions. When we drove around other cars, we intentionally stayed back a few cars. We were just going to drive a little, then stop at Mamma Mia's Pizzeria. We drove for an hour and 35 minutes. I just stared out the window, wondering how the others were doing, wondering how Tommy was doing. I wondered if he was confused or scared. Maybe he was just enjoying this wild adventure or sleeping. I can't wait to see the look on his face when he realizes that today might just be the best day of his entire life. Ivan's car. I got my hands up. They're playing my song. They know I'm gonna be okay. Yeah, it's a party in the USA. Yeah, it's a party in the USA. Sophie and Victoria sang. "You girls having fun?" "Definitely, Ivan," Sophie shouted. "I can't wait to get wasted," Victoria proclaimed. "Hey, Tommy, you having fun in there? This is a wild ride for you, Tommy. This is the best day of your freaking life, dude. If you aren't having a great time, well, screw you." Ivan laughed and yelled. Songs kept playing, and the singing kept going until they arrived at Mamma Mia's Pizzeria. Mickey's car. "Oh, Mickey, you're so fine. You're so fine. You blow my mind. Hey, Mickey. Hey, Mickey," Carson wailed. "Shut up, moron. You're such a goof. By the way, my name isn't the name in the song. Dummy. Whatever. I was just being silly. It was funny. You have to admit." "Yeah, sure." They look at each other and start laughing tears. "How do you think Tommy's doing? He should be fine. I mean, come on, that was a funny prank. Did you see the look on his face? Speechless. That was a fun time. I sort of feel bad for the guy. He had no clue what was happening. He had it coming. Besides, it's just a prank, Carson. Matt even said it himself." Matt's car. I continue to stare out the window. The cars wisp by as Matt drives past every light and building. My lap vibrates, and I pick up my phone. The screen light glares on my face as I read the text that I've received. "Maddie, don't you think it's a bit weird? We're the only two that haven't helped in this whole prank." "I haven't thought about that, really." "Me, well, Matt did say, regardless of me attending this prank, he doesn't need me. I don't know what the excuse for you is, though. I'm sure he'll give us something to do." The thought of Matt not needing me made me upset. Maddie, I felt, had a point. Why hadn't I gotten a role yet? "Maddie, I guess you're right, but something seems off. I don't know what it is, but I'm sure I don't want to find out." Matt glances over his seat and smiles at both Maddie and I. You girls sitting nice and tight back there? Just fine. Thank you, Maddie says, sounding a bit sarcastic. Yup, just starving. I really am hungry. Well, I just so happened to bring along the vodka. Care for another shot or two? Yeah, why not? Matt expands his arm while peeking his eye on the road to reach the bottle of vodka beneath the glove compartment. He hands the bottle over. I twist the cap and waterfall a big gulp of the bitter alcohol into my mouth. I offer some to Maddie, but reluctantly, she refuses. After a while, my head starts to spin, and the passing of cars begins to turn a little blurry. Car motion and the beginning of becoming drunk aren't a good mix. Occasionally, I would gargle a couple strands of vodka into my mouth. It made me almost forget why I'm in this car in the first place. Plan day. Car ride around town. Check. Secret plan. Plan E. Unload in progress. Mamma Mia's Pizzeria parking lot. I'm sleeping in the back seat, while Maddie gently shakes me to wake up. I just moan, giving the hint to leave me alone. Maddie gets out of the car with Matt and joins the others. As everyone heads inside, Tommy and I are left alone in separate cars. By this time, the bottle of vodka is completely empty, and I don't even remember me finishing the last gulp. I lie back with my eyelids feeling extremely heavy. Everything around me was a bit muffled. I felt prickles all over my body. Do you have Maddie? Yes. Do I? Yes. Now. It's all set. Let's go. Maddie? Matt? What were you guys talking about? Their voices were in and out. I feel very dizzy. The whole night felt dark. There I was, gone. I was always just gone. Looking out, but looking inside now. I guess the whole time, I sort of knew. I just didn't want to admit it. Secret plan. Plan E. Unload. Check. No one would suspect a thing when they find us. I mean, in the beginning, I just thought it was a silly prank. But I didn't realize I wasn't a part of it all. Just the fact that Tommy and I were the prank. When we both didn't wake up. Tommy being dead, and I being intoxicated and drugged. I didn't know. We both didn't know. And that's the sad part. Chad. Autopsy. Tommy Miller. Age 24. Male. Brown hair and eyes. Location of death. In the woods. Time of discovery. Saturday morning. 7:30 a.m. Inward body. Consumption of alcohol. Lungs collapsed. Difficulty breathing. Vomit in the esophagus. Outward body. Pale skin. Red under eyes. Eyes opened. Half naked. Possibility of the cause of death. Choked on vomit. Failure to breathe. Francis D'Angelo. Age 22. Female. Blonde hair and green eyes. Location of death. In the woods. Time of discovery. Saturday morning. 7:30 a.m. Inward body. Consumption of alcohol. multiple drug consumption, outward body, pale skin, needle markings, bloodshot eyes, eyes opened, half naked, possibility of the cause of death, intoxication, and everything was planned ahead of time, maybe a month before April Fools. Everyone who I thought were my friends, co-workers, had everything planned. All evidence was hidden, and everything was perfectly placed. Everything was supposed to be a silly prank, but it turned out to be a prank gone terribly wrong. How to rob a library. Harry was ready. Harry hated books. The plan was simple. If he robbed the library, there would be no books to read. No books equals no library. Even if the library wanted to buy new books, they would have no place to put them. Phase 10 of the plan was to burn the library to the ground. The mission was ready to go. Phase 1. Knock out any guards. You will need fry pan and 2 ropes. The guards wouldn't stand a chance. There were only 2 of them anyway. What harm could they do? The answer to that was a lot of damage. The guards had been trained in the martial arts, so if you stood in their way, you were burnt toast. Good thing Harry wasn't bred, or the mission would be even more difficult. He slowly crept through the bushes, holding his fry pan in one hand and the rope in the other. Soon he saw a light getting close. A guard was coming. Piece of cake, Harry thought. This was going to be fun. Ding! The guard fell down to the floor, so he was tied to a tree. 1 down, 1 to go. Slowly, Harry crept out of the bushes and looked around. Where was the guard? "Hey, you! Stop right there!" called a voice from behind him. Time for real fun. Harry swung the fry pan through the air, and with a thunk, it came to rest on the guard's head. Thud. Time for Phase 2 of the plan. Phase 2. Disable the security cameras. You will need the pickaxe to be sure that no one found him out tomorrow. Harry would have to hide a lot of evidence, like knocking out the guards. All he had to do was smash all the cameras around him. There were about 20 of them, scattered around the place. Number 1. Harry threw the pickaxe through the air. Bullseye. Number 2. It spotted him before he saw it, but no evidence remains now. Number 3, 4, 5, 6. Too easy. Number 7. Whoever designed this must have thought that 1-year-olds were the only criminals around. The rest were too easy to be recorded. Time for Phase 3. Phase 3. Shoot a window on the top floor of the library. You will need a gun. Harry took a deep breath. He got 1 shot at this. That was all. If he missed, he would have to reshoot. Then it would be more likely people had heard the shots and come to invigilate. Ready, aim, fire. Bang. Smash! The shot couldn't have been better. The window shattered instantly. Time for Phase 4. Phase 4. Climb up the library. Don't do with adult supervision. You will need a rope. Harry took a deep breath. It was time to climb. Using all of his force, he threw the rope up to the smashed window. Then he began to climb up the library. Error in the plan. It has recently rained, and the building is now very slippery. There was no safety gear added to the list. A slip will result in being in a coffin. Harry was about halfway up the 10-meter-high building when the error came into place. He tried to take another step. He slipped and fell. Luckily, he grabbed the rope just in time, so he got away with just a few scratches. So much for a library being a safe place for kids, he thought. Finally, he reached the top. It was time for Phase 5. Phase 5. Take down the librarian. The librarian will never leave. Its post, not even after hours. You will need glue and the remaining rope. Harry looked around, knowing the librarian could be anywhere, watching him. He got to work covering the floor with glue. It was going to be a sticky trap to fall into. Time to do the fun bit. Make noise. One thing you should know about librarians is they hate noise. Shh is one of their favorite words to use. So, noise would be the bait to the trap. Harry counted to 3, and then, boom. He rejected at the top of his voice. A second later, he heard footsteps coming towards him. "I'm over here!" He cried. The librarian turned around and scowled. "Come here, boy." She yielded, taking a step forward. Squelch. She soon found herself glued to the floor. Now it was time to tie her up, just for the fun of it. Time for Phase 6. Phase 6. Rob the books. You will need a sack. Harry did that immediately, so I won't record that. Phase 7. Get ready to set the fire. You will need some of the stolen goods and petrol. Fun was rising in Harry's soul. Time to get ready for the fire. He walked up to the tied librarian and grinned. Then he ripped some of the books to shreds. Then he sprinkled them all around the room. That was just the beginning. Time for the petrol. Harry ran around the room, pouring it everywhere. The librarian looked furious. That made Harry feel a sense of achievement. Phase 8. Make sure the librarian won't get killed in the fire. You won't need anything. Harry walked up to the librarian. "I'm sorry, miss, but I'm going to have to throw you out the window," he said. The librarian looked furiously at him. "Did you not know that a librarian never leaves its post?" She screamed angrily. Oh well, thought Harry, so be it. Phase 8 has been cancelled. Phase 9. Make sure you can escape easily. You will need a safe place. Harry looked around the room. He couldn't go through the window because the rope would catch fire. He couldn't just stay here, though. He had to do something. It was then that Harry realized that there was a door to the library, so he could just escape through it. Too bad it can't be a bit dramatic, he thought. Phase 10. Light the fire. You will need the matches. Flick. Harry struck the match. Then he walked over to the petrol. Then he set the fire. He now had just 3 minutes to escape. Fire was already everywhere the eye could see. It was time for the next phase. Phase 11. Escape the library. You will need lots of luck. Without looking back at the screaming librarian, Harry raced downstairs. The fire chased him the whole way. It didn't stop until Harry wasn't out of the library. By now, the building was alight in the darkness, so the firemen and police would be here. Phase 12. Throw the sack of books in the river. You will need the sack of books. Harry raced down to the cold, dark river. It was time to get rid of the books. Without hesitation, he threw the books into the murky depths. He smiled as he watched them go. Phase 13. Act innocent. Sirens wailed as the police came to the scene. Time to do the job. Harry walked right past the police, and they didn't notice. Who would expect a kid to break into a library and murder someone anyway? For more information on how to do damage, please go to your local library, if it hasn't been burnt down, and find more of our how-to guides. A woman of loose morals. Neha covered her head with the dupatta of her salwar kameez and wrapped it across her shoulder. She put on the oversized black sunglasses borrowed from her roommate, Kavya, who, along with the rest of the second-year students of Kasturba Medical College, was attending the first lecture of the day. Dr. Swami was one of the lenient professors, and students often got away with marking proxy attendance for their friends. As Neha checked the pen drive in her pocket for the 10th time, she prayed that Kavya would successfully mark her proxy attendance today. Her life depended on it. Leaving behind her Honda Activa parked in the hostel parking, Neha hailed an auto rickshaw 100 meters from the college gate. There could be CCTV cameras outside shops in the market where she was headed. Arriving in an auto rickshaw dressed in a plain white salwar kameez with her head covered and most of her face obscured by the oversized sunglasses would make her indistinguishable from the other women walking on the streets. With the auto rickshaw noisily chugging towards the market, Neha fought off a fresh wave of nausea as she recalled the threatening calls and obscene WhatsApp messages she and her friends had been receiving for the past 6 days, while the boys were being threatened with their limbs being hacked off and their eyes ripped out of the sockets. The girls were being terrorized with warnings of brutal rapes and horrifying acid attacks. The message was loud and clear. Withdraw your testimony or face the consequences. Due to fear of backlash and pressure from their families, 10 out of the 12 students had already withdrawn their testimonies, including the boys and girls who had been hospitalized. After all, the right-wing organization they were up against had strong political affiliations and big muscle. In the past few years, the organization members had been accused of vandalism, ransacking, and violence against minorities. But unfortunately, there had been no convictions. The Mangalore city air was heavy with humidity, but Neha felt a fresh chill sweep through her body as she imagined the repercussions for herself and her family if the organization found it was she who provided the incriminating evidence. Her fear was swiftly replaced by sorrow as she recalled the phone conversation with her family 2 days after the incident. I have already spoken to Mathur. Your testimony has been withdrawn, Neha's father had said on the phone. Mr. Mathur was the police commissioner of Mangalore City and an old friend of Neha's father. But Papa, how could you do that? I've been urging all my friends to testify. How can I back out? You will do as you're told. As it is, you've brought shame upon the family. I have brought shame upon the family. A heavy silence had settled on the phone line. Neha could hear her mother admonishing her father in the background. Beta, we care about you. We don't want you to get hurt. Her mother's voice was taut with anxiety. But I'm already hurt, Ma. I'm hurt, and you're asking me to let them go scot-free so that they can keep doing this over and over again. Another pause. Beta, your father has invested a lot of money in your education. You know how much a medical degree costs. I know, Ma, but do not spoil your future. One day, you will get married. Who will marry you knowing that you were involved in this incident? It was the only time in the 19 years of her life that a swear word escaped Neha's lips in front of her parents. Horrified, her mother had returned the phone to her father. If you do not do as you're told, we'll bring you home and get you married. It's your decision. The line had gone dead. Neha retrieved her mobile from her pocket and dialed Karen's number. No response. Again. With a pang of horror, Neha wondered if he had blocked her. I just want to know you're okay, she typed. Call me, please. Neha replaced the phone in her pocket, bracing herself for the next step. The auto rickshaw had reached its destination. Up ahead, Neha could see Ramu's internet cafe, the seedy corner shop at the end of the crowded market. As Neha clutched the pen drive in her pocket and headed towards the internet cafe, all she could hear was the sound of her pounding heart. "6 days ago, never have I ever," paused Raj, the lanky second-year student of Kasturba Medical College, had 2 girlfriends, or boyfriends, at the same time. As 4 boys and 2 girls brought their glasses to their lips for a drink, Neha sighed. This game was turning out to be duller than she'd imagined. It was either that, or she'd led a pretty boring life up to now, because her drink lay untouched on the table. Neha had never kissed in public. In fact, never kissed at all, never smoked a cigarette, never flunked an exam, never cheated on a test, never smoked a joint, never sang or danced in public, never traveled to a foreign country. Heck, this was the farthest she'd been from her home in New Delhi. So yes, her life had been pretty uneventful. Neha's eyes were drawn again to Karan, sitting across the round table, the colored disco lights from the dance floor brightening his face in all sorts of delightful ways. She wondered what he thought of her, or whether he thought of her at all. He seemed to prefer her company to anyone else's in college, and he often blushed in a childlike, innocent way whenever she caught him staring at her. But did he love her the way she loved him? 2 waiters appeared at their table, carrying plates of steaming paneer tikka, juicy chicken tikka, and colorful vegetable platters. The 12 hungry teenagers devoured the food within minutes and ordered another round of snacks. The game resumed with Priya, a portly girl with a shrill voice declaring, "Never have I ever been in love." Sounds faded and sights blurred as Neha's universe shrunk to the space between Karen's eyes. Those gorgeous brown eyes that were looking right at her and conveying feelings that neither of them had been able to express. As though mirroring each other's actions, Neha and Karan lifted their glasses and sipped their drinks, all the while looking at each other. Finishing his drink in a single gulp, Karan excused himself and went towards the exit of the pub. Taking a cue, Neha followed him outside, passing by a group of 30-something-year-olds with children's birthday caps balanced precariously on their heads, gyrating to Badshah's Abi to party Shuru Hui Hai. The party has just begun. On the dance floor, Neha found Karan in the parking outside, leaning against his Maruti Swift, a lit cigarette in his hand. "All okay?" she asked, approaching him. "All good," he said, smiling. "So, are you enjoying your first party?" It was a running joke among her classmates that how Neha Kapoor, the supreme nerd, had artfully avoided all parties in the first year of college and focused solely on her studies, while the rest of her classmates had spent every weekend in a drunken stupor. "It's not so bad," she said. Karan chuckled. "It won't kill you to admit you're having a blast." The 3 drinks she'd had before they started playing the awful game dominated her senses. Neha wondered whether his lips had always been so full and red and juicy looking, or had she been blind the entire last year. Neha felt his hand on her arm, the pressure maddeningly exciting. His face was tantalizingly close to hers, and she could smell the cigarette on his breath. Wait a minute. Was he pushing her away? "You're drunk. Let's get you something to eat, shall we?" His voice seemed to be coming from just away, and as Neha followed him inside, she realized with a pang of mortification that she'd just tried to kiss him, and he'd pushed her away. Neha cursed silently as she took her seat at the table, avoiding looking in the direction she'd been looking all evening. She nudged her friend Kavya, sitting next to her. "Meet me in the bathroom," she whispered. Kavya peered at her friend in the semi-darkness of the pub. "Is everything okay?" "Yeah, I just need to talk." Taking extreme care to look anywhere but at him, Neha ambled towards the bathroom, wishing she could disappear. She pushed open the door with the Queen of Hearts sign hanging on it and entered the empty ladies' bathroom. Roughly, she splashed some water on her face and gaped at her reflection in the mirror. 3 drinks, and she'd transformed into a girl who tried to kiss a boy in public, a boy who wasn't even her boyfriend. And the headache, oh, the mighty headache building up behind her eyes. She should have stopped at 1 drink. The whole party experience was so overrated. Neha wasn't sure she'd ever go to another party. What was that? Neha closed the tap and listened attentively. Somebody, a man, was yelling in the local language, and she couldn't understand a word. No, it was more than one man shouting. Loud, angry voices coming from just outside the bathroom door. The music stopped abruptly. The voices grew louder. What was going on? Before Neha could reach the door, a girl's scream pierced the air, sending a chill down her spine. With trembling, cold hands, Neha pushed open the door and peered through the tiny crack. The bright lights hurt her eyes. A group of 25 men, all in a high state of excitement, had barged into the pub and encircled her friends. Their faces convoluted in fury. These young men were hollering at the teenagers in a language she couldn't understand, while making aggressive, threatening gestures. All Neha could catch were the words drinking, smoking, girls, and loose morals. The second-year male students had formed a circle around the 4 girls, who huddled together in the center, terrified, while the group of belligerent men hurled abuses at them. Neha watched in horror as one of the men punched Karan on the nose. He stumbled backwards, holding his bleeding nose. It was at that precise moment that pandemonium erupted, with first flying through the air, crushing and snapping and breaking bones, a congealed mass of humanity, shoving and yelling and crying, heads and limbs sticking out at grotesque angles. Neha tore her gaze away to look for the staff of the pub, the manager, somebody who could help, but there was nobody in sight. The older partygoers seemed to have fled, leaving the teenagers at the mercy of these goons, trying to be inconspicuous. Neha hunkered low on the floor and dialed Mather Uncle's number with shaky hands. It was 11:05 p.m. Mathur Uncle picked up on the 3rd ring. "Neha, is everything okay?" His voice was alert and tense. Clearly, the call had been unexpected. Neha relayed everything as clearly and precisely as she could. "I'm dispatching units right away. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Lock the door. Stay in the bathroom." Neha closed her eyes, teardrops running down her cheeks. Her friends were being beaten to a pulp by these fanatics, and all she'd done was make a phone call while hiding in the bathroom, like the coward that she was. The screams were piercing her eardrums, firing bolts of agony to her brain. She couldn't just sit here and wait. She had to do something. But what could she do? If she went outside, she would get beaten up too. How could she help then? Neha glanced at her sneakers, grateful she wasn't wearing heels, and turned on her phone's camera. She opened the bathroom door and pressed record. The longer Neha witnessed the dastardly act, the more she felt infuriated and emboldened. She stepped out of the bathroom in her black, knee-length dress and her red sneakers, zooming in on the face of each attacker one by one. The girls had been yanked away from the boys and were being slapped and dragged by their hair by a group of 10 men who had surrounded them. On the other side, the boys were being brutally kicked and punched by another group. Neha drifted towards the exit of the pub while continuing to record the ghastly events. When she was sure she had captured every man's face on camera, Neha put her phone away and whistled loudly. Some men turned around and spotted her. They began yelling at each other. "Catch me if you can, assholes!" With these words, Neha turned on her heels and sped towards the exit of the pub. A group of men dashed after her, breaking the circle around the girls, who pushed the rest of the men out of their way and hurried to the exit. Fear pumped through Neha's veins like adrenaline, propelling her through the parking and towards the main road, deserted at this time of the night. 15 men were chasing her, bellowing and cursing and making obscene gestures. Neha wasn't sure how long she could outrun them or where she could go. Her college was 6 kilometers away, and even if she ran all that distance, she didn't think her pursuers would stop at the gate. As Neha turned left at a traffic signal, she could hear the police siren blaring, and just a moment later, the headlights of 2 police jeeps blinded her. She paused and spun around to see that the men had stopped, turned 180 degrees, and were now running away from her and the police jeeps. The fusty, windowless cubicle of the internet cafe contained a bulky monitor hooked to a CPU, at least 10 years old. As Neha plugged in the pen drive, her mobile began to ring. "Karan, where are you? Are you okay?" she said breathlessly, an ominous pause. "Neha, I'm okay. Listen carefully. I called to say goodbye," he said in a hoarse voice. "What? What happened?" "My parents have transferred me to another medical college in another city." "Why? Where are you going?" "I can't say. Look, I'm sorry. Just stay away from this whole business, okay? It's the only way to stay safe. These people, His voice trailed off. Karan, I have to go now. Goodbye, Neha. The line went dead. Neha stared at her mobile, feeling like the whole world was spinning beneath her. A news app on her mobile flashed a news report about a statement by the founding member of the right-wing organization that had attacked them 6 days ago. These girls come from all over the country. Drink, smoke, and walk around in the night, spoiling the traditional girls of the city. Why should girls go to pubs? Are they going to serve their future husbands alcohol? Should they not be learning how to make rotis, Indian bread? Pubs and bars should be for men only. We wanted to make sure that all the women in the city are home by 7 p.m. Neha gaped at her phone in mute disbelief. The computer screen prompted her to create a new account. It was the anonymous account through which she intended to upload the video and broadcast it. Neha brought her hands to the keyboard and began typing the account name. A woman of loose morals. Author's note. To read about the true events that inspired this story, search for Mangalore Pub Attack. Sadly, the 26 men charged with the assault walked free due to lack of evidence, despite the assault being caught on camera. The dark night. A shadow of a figure was running in the dark. All around were tall trees, and only a small fraction of the moon's rays got through the canopy. The ground was a black void, with no difference between the dirt and the tree roots. A pack of wolves howled in the distance. With every gust of wind, the tree branches and leaves banged and rustled like a toddler playing with pots and pans. Under all of that was a low mumble, rhythmic, like a drum cadence, but ghostly in origin. The figure trips. Eli. The scene quakes. Eli. The moon disappeared. Elijah. Blinding fluorescent light replaced the woods. 13-year-olds Eli and Tyler were sitting in the mall food court, eating dinner across from each other. Eli's heart was pounding in his ears, and his hands trembled. Tyler put her hands on his. Eli, what did you see? Eli repeatedly blinked back at her as the fog lifted from his head. I don't really know. Come on, she said, slinging on a side bag as she raised from her chair. You can think about it on our way home. I don't want to miss the bus. Without a word, Eli cleaned up their table and carried the tray away. As soon as his hand was free, he reached for her hand. They walked away from the tables, with Tyler locking her arm from Eli's swinging. Not too many people were left in the mall. There were a few stragglers around the pop-up stands, but most were lacing their arms through jacket sleeves by the exits. However, two men, a twig-like one with close-to-the-head African curls, and a log-like one with slicked hair, mostly to one side, didn't fit in either group. They stood off the side, away from everyone else, surveilling, looking for something. Their cookies and cream vibe didn't make Tyler divert their path. She was right until they stepped into their way. "Excuse us, Tyler Woodlock and Elijah Krieger?" the twig one asked through a British accent. Tyler pulled Eli closer. "No, sorry," she answered, starting to walk around them, with her and Eli's fingers turning red. "Government agents?" The other man stopped them, flipping open his budget case. "Miss Woodlock." The Brit slid closer, as Tyler gave out a nervous laugh. She pulled it together with a devious smirk. "All right, agents." She stepped closer. "But one thing first." "Yes," the man said, putting his budget back. Tyler gave the Brit, the fitter one, a stiff kick in the shin. With him on the floor and his partner stunned, she yelled, "Run, Eli," giving Eli a push start. Eli sprinted off, getting a head start as Tyler toppled over a supply case. He headed for the loading docks, a path Tyler forced him to memorize for an emergency like this. As ordered, he ran without looking back. He nearly ran off the truck port in his mindset. He jumped down. Falling on his hands, he looked like a frog. He couldn't find the strength to stand, but he walked, half crawled, to the rear of the building. Collapsing against the brick, he took his chance to look back. She wasn't there. He stayed twisted around the corner, waiting for Tyler. All of a sudden, bright light beamed onto him. Drawing Eli's attention, the voice called out, "Stay there!" They boomed like a drill sergeant. He clambered to his feet and did the total opposite as the voice commanded. A stampede of boots followed Eli as he jotted into the wooded area on the other side of the loading lane. The fall night grew darker as he was chased farther in the woods. With every gust of wind, the tree branches and leaves banged and rustled. Their movement shifted and blocked the moon as if in a game of peekaboo. This and the uneven ground made Eli bobble like a pinball. The voice rang out again. "Get him! Don't let him get away." It allured him to look back. A light show of flashlights was going on behind. Even with all the light, however, the people remained shadows. A gopher tunnel tripped Eli up a bit. As he looked up, a pair of amber eyes, low to the ground, stared at him from a few yards away. The progression of howls following the encounter made Eli run fast. He couldn't hear the boots anymore. He would turn his head a few degrees before forcing it straight. The last one sent him flying into the ground. Tyler peered over a row of bushes. Eli laid on the ground, with only his chest moving up and down. As soon as she raised from her position, two men came into view. One went to Eli's side, and the other pulled out a radio. Asset found, about 4 clicks due east of the loading dock. The radio guy looked around the perimeter as the second man searched Eli's pocket. Tyler fished around in her bag. In the dark, the inside of her bag was a void. She felt cold metal as more men appeared. the one left Eli's side. "The cards aren't here, sir." Eli let at a moan as he began to stir. "Bring him. We'll find out soon enough where they are." He turned and started the procession away. Radio and Pocket Man gave each other a glance before Pockets threw Eli over his shoulder. The remaining men followed. Tyler took her hand out of her back. She fell to her knees, with her hands on her face. As the first tears started falling, she wiped them away with her fists clenched. She ran back to the mall, heading towards the parking lot. Her head bubbled back and forth, looking at the cars and people. Losing her structure, she fell back on her knees. She started crying again, right before her ears perked up. Snapping her head around, she saw the two agents from inside. "We lost, ma'am," she heard the agent who threw his badge in her face. They were ready to run. A grin grew across her face. She spined back, with her attention being grabbed by the rear of the car she fell in front of. The license read, CA exempt 387690. She had seen enough of those when the police raided their Romani dwellings. The odds of that being their car, she didn't know. Not did she know the odds of them automatically unlocking it far enough away that she could climb into the trunk before they were close enough to see. The two agents and their unknown guest arrived at their motel on the outskirts of town almost an hour after Eli was taken. The building wasn't too big, just 2 rows with 8 or so doors each. Behind each were a single room and a bath. The agents went first. Tyler waited until she couldn't hear them anymore before pushing out the back row cushion. Sitting on the floor of the car, she watched as they entered a room with the number 6 on the door. She opened the door carefully so she wouldn't hit the next car. In the same manner, she closed it without a sound. She strategically stepped as she reached back into her bag. After peering into the room's window, she saw the 2 agents with their backs to the door. There seemed to be nothing but a wall in front of them. But that didn't bother Tyler. She walked right in and pulled her hand out of her bag before slamming the door shut. The agents jumped if shots had been fired. They found that they weren't too far off. Dropping their phone, they were face to face with a gun barrel. "Hello again, miss." "Woodlock," one agent said through his British accent as they snuck for their weapons. "Don't patronize me," she said, cocking her gun. "Do you think you can pull yours before I shoot the both of you? I've already proved I have grace under pressure." They both bring their hands forward. "What do you want?" the other one asked. "Well, Agent Vincent Petrov, I'm thinking about a trade." Flaunting his arrogant British accent, he asked, "What would you have that we would?" Cutting him off, Tyler pulled out a deck of tarot cards. "Really? I might be a child, but I'm not an idiot." "That still doesn't answer my question," Vincent said. "I want Eli back." "Excuse me, even if I believe for a second you're not with the men who took him, You bring him back to me, and you get these no-so-meaningless cards, and we all live happily ever after. The agents gave each a glance. Let me make this easier. You do this, or I shoot you, and go on my merry way. Eli was groggy, teetering between awake and asleep for the car ride, though no one could tell through the blindfold, nor from his position in the trunk. They had tried his wrists and ankles to stop the little fight he had in him. No kicking, no hitting, no running. More helpless than he was without Tyler. He was asleep when the car stopped, but was jarred awake when one of the men yanked him out. Being bobbled around, his face was red and breathed deeply, trying to keep dinner in. The only relief came when he was dropped to the floor. After the bang of the door, Eli was left to wait once more in the dark. He pulled at his ropes, only stopping when the burning turned into paper-cut sensations. No closer to freedom, he crumbled, stopped straining, stopped fighting, stopped holding it together. Back at the motel, Tyler sat crisscrossed on the first bed from the door, yanking her locket back and forth on its chain. She stared at the agents that sat on the other side of the room. She tried to hear what they were saying, but they put the same effort into the opposite. "What are we going to do, Miles?" Vincent asked. "Play the game. Easier said than done. We know when, where, and a fair idea of by who. The who is what scares me. I would be more scared of the lass if we don't." I agree with Agent Walker. A woman, dressed in a white skirt suit with her dark hair in a spiral braid, said just inside the room. "Ms. Isles?" Vincent jumped out of his seat. Tyler did the same. She stared at the woman, jotting a glance at the door, then back. No one heard the door open or closed. "Hello, miss." "Woodlock," Ms. Isles said, raising her hand. "Hi," Tyler said, more like a question than snipe, without shaking her hand. "Well, do you want the good news or the bad news?" "Good would be best," Vincent toddled. Isles looked at Tyler. "Find the boy. Bring him back. Finish your original mission," she said through a smile. She began to walk away. She already had her hand on the doorknob before any of them stopped her. "What about the bad news?" Miles shouted. "Work with her, Walker. Work with her," she said, leaving before and without argument. Eli had no idea how long he was asleep for, but when he opened his eyes, he was met with a blinding light. He stretched out to find his legs and arms unbound. Panicked and joyed, he shuddered and jostled. He missed the hand on the wrist. A shadow eclipsed the bright light. "Do you mind not moving?" The voice sounded familiar. With the light masked, Eli could start to see the room. First, the man kneeling in front of him, graying hair, flannel button-up shirt, and placid blue eyes. Then small red spots on the gray cement floor. And last, white bandage roll, some on his right wrist, and the man wrapping more onto his left. "I think you've bled enough on my floor for today," the man said, finishing his work. "Your floor? Don't be put off by the casual dress," I'm the boss here, and that's why I can offer you this. You answer all my questions, and you can go home to your gypsy family, to your sweet wife, Tyler, without any more harm. What do you want to know? Eli asked as he sat up. Why don't we start with something simple? Why did you run away from me at the loading docks? Said the man who blared a flashlight in Eli's eyes earlier that night. Vincent sat at the small two-person table, glaring at a street map and a calculator. How is it going, Vince? Miles asked, leaning over Vincent's shoulder. Not great. Knowing that they took Elijah 75 minutes ago, and assuming they stayed within 5 miles per hour of the speed limit, they can be anywhere within and around 50 miles away from the mall. That's a big area. You don't know the half of it. Miss Woodlock. Tyler, she yelled at him. My name's Tyler. Tyler. He put his hands up halfway. Can you give us anything? Car model, direction, anything? I was a little busy, trying not to get caught myself. Trying to find you fools. If we try to search all of this, Vincent pulled Miles closer and lowered his voice. We won't get to him in time. Don't talk like that, Tyler yelled, with a little cry behind it. You start talking like that, and things will end that way. She fell back onto the bed, with her hands on her face. Miles glared down at Vincent, with his arms crossed. He kept that position as he walked over to the bed. Sitting next to her, he put his arm around her, with an air bubble between them. Thanks, she said, whipping her hands out from her face. It's getting late. Why don't you rest for a bit? We don't want our sharpshooter's eyes heavy. I've been one for the last 10 years. But, she paused, bringing up her watch on her right wrist. Watch, she continued, jumped off the bed. What? Miles followed her towards Vincent. Watch. She started searching her bag. I got Eli a watch for our first anniversary. He never takes it off. She presented the watch's instructions. And it has GPS. Anniversary? They asked. During their time together, the man asked Eli an array of questions. Most about trivial personal things to get Eli relaxed and uncoil from his balled-up position. It was working, too. He was as relaxed as if he was home. His eyes glassed over as the questions droned on. The room faded away. A dark place appeared. A spotlight shines on the center. A glint of metal moved in from the bottom. A gun, revolver, a white hand, a flannel sleeve. The hand snapped the bullet holder back into the gun. It aimed. Destroying the image, the shot fired caused Eli to scream and hold his ear. His ears were still ringing when the man tried to calm him down. Eli saw what he expected was on his own face, on the man's. The man removed Eli's hands. His mouth moved, but Eli couldn't hear it. He yanked himself away. Why are you asking me all these questions? What do you want? The man had a blank face. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. After straightening his shirt, he said, "You have something that belongs to me." I don't have anything. Eli shuddered. Not now, but... He exhaled heavily through his nose. Tyler gave you something. A set of tarot cards. I don't know where they are, he stuttered. Well, it's the last question you have to answer, so give it a good thought. They could be anywhere. In the woods where you chased. Back in the mall where the other two did. With, he said, trying to put the brakes in his mouth. Sir, you know where they are. No, I don't. Yes, you do. He pulled a gun from his back waistband. Tell me. Eli's mouth opened, but the only crashing noises came. The sound made both of them jot their attention towards the door. The man gritted his teeth. The other two. Staring down at his gun, he weighed it in his hand before bringing it down on Eli's head. Eli fell to the floor again. The last thing he saw before the backs of his eyelids was the man's black shoes walking out the door. The black gave away to wisps, at first merging into cacti and sand. They whirled by through the view from a car window. Tyler sat on the opposite side, smiling back. In the front seat sat Miles and Vincent. The whole picture felt loving and had a dream-like glow. It faded into a face full of fabric. Before he could freak out like his earlier ones, a hand touched his shoulder. You're all right now. You're safe, Tyler cooed. In a quick movement, Eli raised to hug her, nearly bringing them to the floor. Regaining her structure, she hugged back. In their embrace, Eli missed Miles and Vincent standing off to the side, smiling down at them. Unoccupied guest rooms were always hiding things. No one starts out wanting a guest room. It's usually an office first, but then you got fired and can't look at it anymore, so you throw a bed in it that you'll never sleep in. Sometimes it's a kid's room, but they've moved out into a college dorm room. It used to be storage, but then the divorce happened, leaving it depressingly empty. A studio for recording music, but the bass player was in a car accident, and the band broke up. Guest rooms are rarely ever intentional. It's more of a ritual, something society has deemed necessary. The presumption that someone wants to stay with you and your new husband. The poor friend grits their teeth, trying to pretend they can't hear you having sex, trying to make the stiff pillows into something they actually want to lay on, trying to breathe through the Yankee Candle Vanilla Wafer air freshener that's plugged into the wall. The window sticks after an inch, and they can't get it up all the way. They unplug it after everyone is asleep. But the smell has been cloistered in the room for so long that it will never smell like anything else. They put the pillow on top of their face and try to sleep. I stood in the doorway to this guest room without entering it. Untouched rooms give you answers. They offer secrets. This one had last been occupied by a dead girl lying face down in a pool of blood. I found out about the case through the police. That never happened. We didn't get along. Yeah? I barked into phone. A landline I had installed myself. Cell phones bothered me. Is this Alma? It was Detective Herbert Ross. He knew it was me. What did you want? I said, trapping the phone between my ear and shoulder as I took a kettle of hot water off the stove and poured it in my favorite chipped mug with my favorite raspberry tea. If this was about the parking tickets I'd never paid, I still wasn't going to pay them. If this was to call me in about the robbery I solved before them, I wasn't going to tell them how I did it. A girl's dead. I set the kettle down a little too hard. Hot water sloshed around inside. I stared at the swirling steam coming up from the cup. I wouldn't be able to drink it now, and I frowned. The cops never called for my help. I usually embarrassed them by figuring their cases out for them. As a PI, it was rare to get a call like this. You need me? Yeah. Can you come? I hesitated for only a moment. Yeah. What's the address? 325 111th Ave, Blaine. I'll be there in half an hour. I hung up and reached for the tea, hoping I could snag one sip. Burnt tongue be damned. The tea bag had broken. Blaine was a little forgotten neighborhood, 30 minutes from Minneapolis, where I lived. The town used to be nice and neighborly, where kids biked until dark and people shoveled driveways for the elderly. Now, it was dirty. Every house had this gray dinginess to it, like everyone had collectively decided 1 year to stop taking care of things. Lawns were overgrown. Cars were rusting away. Big lilac bushes and weeping willows were being taken out or cut down. It was like an anti-homeowners association, uglifying until everything was up to code. I showed up to the house where only one police car remained. There was yellow tape in front of the door. A crowd of people stood a few feet away, muttering. I looked the crowd over quickly, but no one stood out. I lifted the tape and went into the house. Herbert was standing right inside, apparently waiting for me. Body has already been taken. He grunted. That's fine. I didn't get much from dead bodies. I knew Herbert would tell me anything I needed to know, because he had called me. Still, this was awkward. We both were uncomfortable, and it was obvious by how we refused to make eye contact, our hands shoved in our pockets. Husband found her face down in the guest room, stabbed multiple times, said the doors were all locked, no sign of forced entry. You ask the neighbors if anyone was skulking around? Herbert nodded. Nothing out of the ordinary. Seems like everyone keeps to themselves. What did she do? Who? The victim. What did she do for work? Oh, her name's Noelle Sharp. The writer? I asked, bewildered. She was known for gritty romance novels, turned deadly. Not my thing, but I knew her name. Yeah, I didn't know she lived here. He nodded again. They moved here a few years ago. Geez, why? Herbert shrugged. Husband, name Magnus, works for a painting company. She seems to make more dough. Where is he? Already down at the station. Guy's pretty numb. Won't say much. Yeah, well, his wife was murdered. I wondered if Magnus had convinced Noel to move here. If he had done that thing that men do when they feel like their wife, or any woman, really, was doing better than them. So he tried to put her in a box, make her talents and abilities small and manageable, easy to swallow. How many shouting matches had they been through before Noel had conceded to move into this shitbox in the middle of Shitsville? Can I have a few minutes? I asked. Herbert nodded. I surveyed the entrance area. Stairs right in front of us, leading down into a dark, wet-smelling basement. A tiny hall leading into a kitchen. Living room to the left, dining room to the right. I gave the first floor a once-over. Dirty dishes in the sink. Magazines on the coffee table. The trash was empty. No bag. I went up the stairs and found the main bedroom, bathroom, and the guest room. In the middle of the guest room was a huge blood stain. It was flecked around the room, on the walls, on the bed. The stain was dark against the gray of the carpet. I surveyed the room. One bed, one desk with a small lamp and wooden chair, one plush armchair near the window, overhead light, fixture, fan. There was a closet and a nearly empty bookcase, short and pudgy. Maybe something that one of them had been dragging around for years, couldn't bear to get rid of. Some furniture held on to you. I walked in and thought about the room. The carpet was gray, the walls were white, but it was an off-white. It was like the white had been darkened by something. I sat down in the armchair and looked around, pretended I was staying there. I went over and turned the light on. The fan spun slowly above me. I sat back down in the armchair and looked some more. I realized it had been blue. The walls had been blue, but they had been poorly painted over, once, in a hurry. I got up from the chair and went over to the closet. Inside, there was a plastic bin full of wrapping paper. There was a broken vacuum, a box of empty bags to be used for gifts, and a stack of towels and blankets for guests. I reached out and touched the unused things, linens that had never been unfolded. So, no guests, or maybe guests slept on the couch. And this room, like many guest rooms, was useless. I leant down at the carpet in the closet. I took a small pair of scissors I kept on me and cut off some of the carpet threads, slipping them in my pocket. I sat on the bed, and it dipped, like it was trying to swallow me. The room smelt of dust, and the duvet was covered in butterflies. I lay down and stared up at the ceiling. What was missing in this room? And then I bolted upright and stared at the blank walls and realized there was less dust in a few places, sections where things had been removed, pictures. There were no pictures. Herbert was standing outside, trying to get the crowd to leave. I stormed out. "Are you sure this wasn't a robbery?" I asked. Herbert looked over his shoulder, annoyance on his face at my outburst. It made the dispersing crowd turn, new interest compelling them to stay. "Nothing has been taken." "How do you know?" I asked. Husband confirmed. "You don't think, just maybe, he's a little fragile at the moment?" Herbert shrugged. "I'll have him do another walkthrough." I told him I was going to need to come back to the house again. I needed to think. He told me to call him first, before he did. We both knew I wouldn't. But I looked up Noel Sharp on the internet. I found relatives and close friends, and I called and talked to them. Everyone had lovely things to say. I asked about her writing and her hobbies. When I brought up the husband, people also had nothing but good things to say. The mother was the only one who sputtered on and on about how that low life tricked my daughter into marrying him. Worthless career, no family money. She could have married a Rockefeller. I didn't tell her Rockefellers didn't spend time in Minnesota. I found their bank information, social media accounts, insurance. He had taken her name. Previously had been Magnus Brown. He had a brother named Leonard. I called and talked to some more people and asked if they ever had parties. Who were the best friends? Who stayed in that guest room? No one had much to say. There had been a housewarming party, but never another party after that. I called Leonard and asked him about Magnus and Noel. Leonard was still shocked about Noel's murder, kept going on and on about how Magnus adored her. Noel was such a sweet girl. She was so kind to everyone. Great cook. I never read her books, but I knew she was good. Magnus just loved her. I told him to call me if he thought of anything else. I could see from their joint bank account that there was voodoo trouble. There always was. I carefully read through credit card statements, but nothing interesting sprung out. Not even a transaction from a dirty website. I sat by the window in my apartment, smoking until daylight. I waited a few days before going back to the crime scene. I called Herbert on the way to the house, and he told me basic things that I could have guessed. Death due to blood loss, internal injuries, no fingerprints on the knife or around the house, doors locked, nothing broken. Husband staying with a friend. Husband's alibi checks out. Yeah, he was painting a town over. I have the address. I'll take it, I said. I could hear the frown over the phone. I already cleared it with the homeowner. You called me, I said with a shrug that I knew he could hear. He rattled off the address, and I wrote it on a Walgreens receipt. I stopped at a Home Depot and stood in front of the paint chip wall. I stared at the colors, the very berry purple and Derbyshire green. I took out the carpet clippings and held them up over the grays. The carpet color was rock candy. I was at a shabby, buttercup yellow, run-down house that had not been painted in a long time. An old man in an old red sweater answered the door. He was hard of hearing, and his eyes were swallowed up so far into his face that I figured he couldn't see well either. I told who I was: Alma Savage, private investigator, and asked if he had made an appointment to have his house painted. He talked about how this nice fellow had painted his house, how they had drunk beer and talked about baseball. I was confused for only a moment before a young woman with a pixie face and curly hair interrupted us. "My father has Alzheimer's," she explained. "The house was painted a long time ago." I asked her if either of them had talked to the police. She looked confused. The old man had been the one on the phone with Herbert. I parked in front of the Sharp house and called people again and asked them to tell me things they remembered about Noel and Magnus. Memories were precious and often wrong, but sometimes they were the only clues one had to go on. Kathy Green was Noel's best friend. She hadn't been able to talk to me the first time I called. Now she was somber, and her voice wobbled, but she talked to me. I had dinner with them every month. Magnus cooked the best meals. Magnus, I repeated. What about Noel? Nope. Noel didn't like cooking. Whenever we were alone, we always ate out. Kathy kept talking, clearly happy to have someone to talk to. They wanted kids so bad, but Noel had a miscarriage, and they never tried again. Magnus couldn't bear it. Had a vasectomy. I asked her when this happened. She said 4 or 5 years ago. I hung up and went back into the house, walking into the guest room and staring at it, realizing it was perfect size for a nursery. The schooner blue walls that had been painted over with Acacia white, the missing pictures, rock candy carpet. I lay on the couch in the living room and determined it was too uncomfortable for someone to sleep on overnight. No one stayed with the Sharps. I called Herbert, still lying on the lumpy couch. "I need you to check something for me." "Alma?" "Yes. I need you to tell me if she was pregnant." "Noel?" "Yes. I'll call you back." Chad. I went into the main bedroom and looked over the dresser, where receipts and change and dollar bills and earrings lay. I looked in their closet at all of Noel's comfortable writing clothes and Magnus's paint-covered clothes. I found photo albums and thumbed through them. Nothing but happy smiles. I looked for medication in the bathroom. Nothing. I dug into drawers and looked through cabinets. Finally, in the garage, I found boxes, unlabeled. I knew it was what I was looking for. I opened them. There were 7 bikes, none matching, all different sizes. Each one had bright pink or bright blue toys, blankets, onesies, pacifiers. Each one contained a cross-stitched rectangle, homemade. Flora Sharp, Theodore Sharp, Maisie, Cooper, Rachel, Kevin. There were photos of the finished rooms, walls different each time. Pinks named Azalea, Flower Teaberry. Blues named Gentle Aquamarine and Breathtaking. I looked down at the boxes, at all the attempts, all the miscarriages. Kathy Green didn't know about this. Her best friend status was weak, watered down because Noelle was too broken or embarrassed or just didn't think it was anyone's business. No one slept on the couch. No one slept in the guest room. I surveyed the rest of the garage and saw some large, framed photos shoved in the corner behind a lawnmower that was covered with a tarp. I went over and pushed the lawnmower away. They were prints of Noelle's book covers, the missing pictures, and there was a bloody thumbprint on the edge of one, her third book, Dangerous Illusion. My phone rang. I answered it, hands shaking. Was she? I asked, throat dry. She was pregnant. Fuck, I muttered. What? Magnus had a vasectomy a few years ago. We'll confirm that on our end. And if you do? I asked. We both knew the answer. If he'd had the operation, it meant Noelle had cheated. It was motive? I found Leonard's apartment the next day. When he opened the door, he was in a wrinkled t-shirt and boxers. It was 3:30 in the afternoon. His eyes were red, and his hair was unkempt. I told him who I was, and he let me in. He gave me a beer. It was warm. I chugged half of it in one gulp. When I swallowed, I asked, "So how long were you sleeping with her?" Leonard pretended to look confused. I waited. Then, after 4.5 minutes of silence, he put his face in his hands and started crying. I loved her so much. Magnus was always complaining, and she would come over and vent, and we'd drink, and we never meant to. Noelle was pregnant, I told him. His teary eyes grew smaller, beadier. Noelle had found out that day. I pushed on. She left the pregnancy test in the trash, and Magnus found it. You know he had a vasectomy. I didn't wait for him to confirm. Noelle was in the guest room, looking at the nursery she never got, hoping it would work this time. It could be you. And Magnus found her, killed her, and took down the photos of her books. Couldn't bear to see them. All her accomplishments. She had money. Her name meant something. And now his own brother was fucking his wife. How did you know that Magnus isn't staying with you? He's staying with a friend. He hates you. No. He choked out, shaking his head, like that would shake the words out. She only cooked for you. When she came over here to vent and drink and fuck, she'd cook for you. She never did that with him. What do I do? He asked, drowning in how much he hated himself. I looked around the drab apartment before turning my eyes back to him, shrugging. Ever thought about painting the place?